Morning, everybody. Morning of Tuesday, October 2nd, 2012. The upper air analysis still brings that deep low across the lower Mississippi Valley, with most of the rains now confined to the eastern one-fifth of the country, as this is a slow-moving storm. And to retard this storm, to move this storm, and it is rather disconnected from the westerlies, which is up here, so it's going to be a slow mover and a huge change in direction for the jet stream, and that's that change in direction that kind of spins up the potential to bring up the rain. As vorticity, you can Wikipedia that. But what we've been watching for this past weekend and several days is intense chemtrailing out across the Pacific. I mean, from northern Idaho across the Pacific Northwest, even off California, but more so out over the open ocean regions off of the BC and Alaskan coast. It was intense. And what is happening is they're building this ridge, and in doing so, will push the jet stream farther and farther northward, and that will open up not quite a cross-polar flow, but a very cold dump of Arctic air into the middle of the nation. And this is what the jet stream looks like today. And as we look into the northwest, and we will in a moment, you'll see this amplifying trough. As this puppy digs down, this storm has got to move out. It's like dominoes falling. Once one falls, the other one has got to go somewhere. So it's moving out. This Arctic, or this Atlantic Bermuda high, is holding this in place. So the storm is getting squeezed and squeezed and squeezed. And this setup, low off the California coast, high in the Gulf of Alaska, that is also going to remain stationary. And this is into Wednesday morning, tomorrow morning. And then as we look at another 24 hours, so the storm finally lifts out of Texas, Louisiana, and then will scoot through New England very quickly. But what we see is this ridge, 588 on the meters, that's a pretty potent high. The jet stream bulges through Alaska, and then we can see that northerly breeze coming, and then a little storm begins to spin up over the northern Rockies, so we might see some Montana snows towards the end of the work week. And then that scoots off to the east. This low might begin to impinge upon California as we get to the weekend. So I would anticipate that there'll be some serious chemtrailing in here on Friday, and then more so through the Rockies, and they love to work these little high-pressure zones. So look for some intense chemtrailing again as we get into Saturday across the Great Basin states and through the west. But what I'm more interested in is how this ridge arcs up across Alaska through the Yukon Northwest Territories and then plunges southbound. And this could bring the first snows to the Arrowhead of Minnesota, through Minneapolis, through northern Wisconsin, and the western Great Lakes states as we move into Saturday night, Sunday morning. And then into Monday, this high remains anchored, and this is the primary anchoring factor for the weather across this continent for this coming 10-day period. So all the storms are forced to go into the polar regions and plunge southbound. This could be a very early season snow across the Great Lakes states as we move into the end of this coming weekend, or early next week. And then, of course, there'll be a ton of chemtrails out on the leading edge of this. So that's kind of what I'm seeing for the next couple of days. We'll go quickly to the satellite imagery. Here's that low arcing off the California coast. Here's the ridge beginning to develop. And then here's that storm that was up across BC, Alberta. That's beginning to move on through. Then we can see some chemtrailing happening in here. Not lots. What is visible in the satellite imagery today is just a fraction of what we've seen over the last couple of days, even out into the Atlantic. As the jet stream kind of departs and then heads over towards Europe, there's not a lot of trailing as well. There had been some stuff up here earlier last night, but I'm just not seeing a lot that's visible, at least in this resolution of imagery during the course of today. So rewind back to the analysis. Again, on Tuesday morning, this storm, this heralds the arrival of much cooler air into the northern tier of the United States, and especially into the Great Lakes states, where by this weekend, I wouldn't be surprised to see some snowflakes flying across this part of the country. Step outside and show you what we've got here going on in southern Colorado. It's a beautiful day. We'll head outside in a bit. Just wanted to throw this in there. And who knows, how this plays into weather, other than the fact that the field is active. And we go into the early hours. In fact, prior to daybreak on Monday, the first of the month, we 0Z on the first, and then the system kind of wakens up, and then it's steadied on out. This is the 36-hour plot. We can step out 2 weeks and see how that looks, and then update. And so you could see, boom, boom, boom. We had something just wake up as we headed into the first part of October. And who knows how this plays, into the weather game. You can see that the antenna is on, but you don't know what the program is. And that's my issue with these radar rings and these spikes and so forth. You can see that the program's on. You just don't know what the program is. And so you can't say that this is causing tornadoes just as easily as they're shutting down thunderstorms, so you get drought. So you can see the light is on, you just don't know what it's doing. Incredibly blue skies today, and this is about what all the trails look like that I've seen. Long and white, they're not really sticking. The planes are a little higher than the engineering planes are, but still not so high that you can't hear them. Now that he's past the meridian, you can hear him. There's the APU turning on and off. Auxiliary power unit out of the back of the tail. And who knows what else is in that mess. Nevertheless, this is what I've seen this morning. Not lots, maybe a dozen or so. But they're not terribly sticking. But yes, they're there. And the fact that the trail lasts that long does give them some data. Because other planes are coming along and they're not leaving any trail. No trail at all. So this is not a contrail. This is a chemtrail. Duh. There's a heavy. I heard it lumbering overhead. I was just about ready to do a shoot on the camera, and I heard a sound. I'm like, oh, that sounds a little bit different than the rest. But there he is. We'll watch this trail. I'm gonna exposure down just a touch. You can see there's definitely he's leaving a fatty. All right, come back up, widen out, and you can see it was a long one, much longer than everything else we've seen today. Much, much, much longer. So look at those vortexes. So they're busy. Something's changing. When they send out the big boys, you gotta watch out. And there's the center plume. Let's see if my focus is set. Yep. I'm hearing another one. There's one, there's two. There's number two. So he's on an intercept. UPS is my guess. UPS or FedEx. Or maybe not. That's got a red tail. That's a different one. I don't know who that is. So, this is what's happening this evening. They're going to be busy tonight. And tomorrow might be interesting. So here's the 747. Here's this pup. Here's this pup. Let's see how they come together. These are two planes. Here's the 747. Off in the distance, you can still see he's blazing away. Some clouds off there. And here's the one with the funky paint job. This is kind of what's been around today. Are these kind? These ones that'll fade within 5 to 10 seconds. Sometimes a little bit longer, but this 747, it's the first one I've seen like that. And just a few mountain clouds, a few cumulus over the mountains here behind me. But that's been about it for the 2nd of October. It's been awfully quiet. I'm not even finding a whole lot on the satellite imagery. Some funky holes back east, over Tennessee, Kentucky, some up over Manitoba, But there's just a relatively quiet day. The heat still rages across California. Redding and Stockton and the Inland Empire is still well into the 90s. They're ready for some cool weather. And with this Arctic outbreak, and I use that term a little bit loosely, it's not quite Arctic, but it's definitely going to be the chilliest weather of the season. Seems what these guys are building, especially off the west coast, is that ridge strongly amplifies just off the west coast and into the Gulf of Alaska. It is going to send some polar air southbound, and that's going to be a season changer for a lot of people. There might be some frost as far south as northern Missouri, some light snows, maybe even some heavier snows across portions of the northern Great Lakes states. So it's going to be a season changer in about 5 days' time. All right, if I see something else, I'll dart outside and have a look. Otherwise, today's commentary is going to be a touch on the short side. All right, everybody, keep looking up. There we go. It's got a blue trail and an orange trail. I'm just hearing another one coming in. Get back out so I can find the second one. All right, there's the first one. There we go, and you can see the difference in the colors. You can see the different colors. Definitely some blue, white, and then that orange. Different mixtures, different altitudes, different purposes. There's a reason for everything. There's a reason for everything. Whoa. Thought I had that. Got a little guy there. And here's our other two. All kind of, one coming this way. You can tell these two at different altitudes. One's higher, one's lower. And then we'll figure out what this one does. But it's going to come pretty much straight overhead. Be steady. Gotta get out of the road. So he's southwest. These two are going to cross. Sometimes they do what I call a tail clip, where I say this one will cross the tail of this one right where it fades. Or in this instance, it might be the other way around, right about where it fades. Boom. And so they measure how long the tail stays visible. That's data. So whether in that case it was, 4 or 5 seconds? That's data to how this atmosphere is responding to these chemical mixtures. I call those tail clips. And that's pretty much our sunset. See you guys. Alright, I was just looking at some of the satellite imagery and then seeing some of these more holes, and I just wanted to point them out before I dump this all off to the computer. Look at how precise this action is. There's such an amazing accuracy. Then you can see the tracks up in the top of the clouds, and all this shows up best around sunset. When the sun angle on the tops of the clouds is then low enough that we get some relief. The holes were showing up very nicely. You can even see in this little deck of clouds around sunset across Minneapolis, all the texture in the tops of the clouds. Look at all that. And then even into the Dakotas. Let's see if we can go a little bit farther west. I think I was even seeing some chemtrails. There's one there. Marking off, just kind of segmenting the work. Go to the middle of the nation. And we got this storm over Iowa, and again we can see these pairs of dark holes. All these little holes. And some are very small in scale, and others are quite large. Let's go down to the Gulf before I head out west. Let's just go out west. and then back off here. But I mean, even through eastern Kentucky, these are just incredibly perfect. Perfect. All these, now this is probably a shadow. But nevertheless, it's kind of fascinating. And I want to go, where are my satellite pictures? There we are. Let's move out a few. We go farther west, off San Francisco. Boom. And notice where it ends. We also have another line from this other trail. It all comes to this point. It comes to this point, off the coast. Other tracks, and these are not regular traffic that's kind of rolling through the Southland and off of the Bay Area. These are dedicated, very precise chemtrails. There's not a lot that's happening out here. We go into the Pacific and there's these odd waves. There's all of this pulsing. And then we have a ship trail that goes through this, right at the kink on this trail. He hit the peak or the apex. But there's just so much texture in these clouds that I would love to be an astronaut up there and have a look-see around. See these things from 500-600 miles up, or even 250 miles up. That would just be phenomenal. And this very strong storm coming in from Canada, all of these holes rippled into it as well. So it's all these holes rolling around, rolling across the planet, that are creating the weather. It's crazy. Let's go to, this is going to be quite a bit brighter. California's just been blazing from Redding and Stockton and Sacramento all the way through the Inland Empire, 99, 101, 100 degrees, 101, 101. Then much, much cooler as we get to the coast. But this heat has been utterly relentless for California, and it doesn't look like they're going to get much of a break till about Tuesday late, when we see this storm well off the coast begin to come inland. And if this model is anything right, that'll be on Saturday. And I think leading up to that, we're going to see a serious onslaught of trails. This is what we call a Rex block, REX. We've got a closed high over closed low, and then the jet stream has to go around it. And as this position stays locked off the coast, then it displaces the jet stream way to the north, and it has to plunge south. And that's going to lead to some upslope snows across Colorado, Wyoming, Montana, and then probably some even lake effect snows. That's a very real possibility, especially as this impulse then rolls through, and that would be early Sunday morning. So we're kind of looking for that situation to show up in the Great Lakes states. Let's look off in the North Atlantic. I have not seen much in the way of trails. Sometimes they're abundant, but that is just not happening. Off Bermuda, we got that dissipating hurricane out here, and there's just not a lot that's happening. Going to the North Pacific, go to a little enhancement on the vapor imagery, and I want to slow it down a touch. But often here there's a little trailing, well off the Oregon coast. There had been some in the Gulf of Alaska, but it's not all that prevalent. So they're giving us kind of a bit of a break. All right, that is it for this Tuesday, August the 2nd, or October the 2nd. All right, everybody. Talk to you tomorrow.